I did have really good experiences with some other members of my family. Particularly my stepfather was very, very supportive. And even before I had come out to him, let me know that he knew I was gay by doing small things and just being supportive. And I have a wonderful best friend that I've had since I was 10 who's always been supportive for me. I think coming out is interesting because sometimes we feel like we do it every day. If somebody doesn't know you, then you, it can still make you nervous a little bit, I think, not knowing who they are and if they're going to support you. For me, the Pride Matters question actually, I think, has more to do with our children than anything else. And to me, we need to make sure our children know it's okay to be themselves. And so I think that's why it's important to just be authentic and show who you are to the world. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then you're showing your children that it's not okay. So that's why Pride matters the most to me.
As far as why Pride matters, I think that's a great question. I was president of Pride this past year, and that was our theme throughout the year, which was something that we chose back in February. And given the course of events for the year, was something that we were really glad to amplify our efforts and voice to. But I think my answer would be quite simple, and that is people often think Pride is a party when we think of the actual celebration. They just think of it as a party. But I really would argue that it's really not a party. It's a lot more than that. And Pride is a great way for the community to come together to recognize our similarities and celebrate those, but also recognize our differences. And we are a very diverse community. We have lots of different opinions, different views. We all look differently and think differently and talk differently. And so it's a great way for us to come together to celebrate our differences, but also recognize what our similarities are. And then the other thing that I think is so important about Pride is it's kind of a good point every year for LGBT members and our allied friends to look back at where we've been, but also look forward to where we need to go. And so I think that each year it's a really important reminder for us to kind of do those things. And so that's why Pride matters to me.
Then go to Neva and then Michael.
I suspect that many of us, or at least Michael and Neva, may touch on different things. I think the thing that I really, if people take nothing else from the call today, the one thing that I really would like people to know, if they don't know already, is that our trans women, African American women of color, are being murdered at a rate that are substantially higher than any other demographic in our country. I think there's been already 31 this year confirmed, and there's suspected to be many, many more that don't get correctly reported. And so it's something that we don't really see about or hear about too often in the news, but it's something that has occurred it's occurred a few times locally. And so it's something that I really think that people just need to be aware of. And, we really need to be doing more to help our friends in the trans community.
Well, I'd just like to begin by associating myself with the comments that were made by Cole and Neva. I think they expressed and really shed light on some key challenges that are faced by members of the LGBTQ community. And since they did such a good job, I'll focus on another, which is mental health. Studies show that members of the LGBTQ community, all members, all letters of that alphabet and plus, are at a higher risk from suffering from mental illness and challenges related to mental health. That includes things that we consider to be less severe mental challenges, such as anxiety and depression, although we know they can be very severe, and including into serious mental illness, as well as substance abuse and addiction issues. The LGBTQ community is disproportionately affected by challenges from mental health. And it's a really serious problem because when one suffers from mental illness and the impacts of that suffering, that relates to other parts of your life. For example, you're much more likely to encounter the criminal justice system. You're more likely to have housing insecurity. You're more likely to have challenges with employment and getting a job, keeping a job, professional development, all become substantial challenges that impacts not only your life, but the lives of the people around you. And I think that we need to make sure that we're ending stigma associated with mental challenges, and that we're making sure that mental health services are accessible to all people. There's some great programs locally from the NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness Coastal Virginia chapter. They have an expressive outreach program for LGBTQ Virginians, and they have a variety of other programs that are available to everyone, including family members. And then some of the agencies mentioned by Neva and Cole also have some mental health programs, and there's mental health providers all across our city who specialize in this area as well. However, there aren't enough. So I think that's another component to this discussion, is about access, um, and the willingness for people to seek out the help they need to face the challenges, mental health challenges that we may face.
Something. So really just even the recognition that you might have a bias against the LGBT community is is a first step. And really, I always sort of think of it as really notice when you're reacting to something. Because when you notice you're reacting, that can give you just a minute to pause and to sort of say, okay, what is it about that that's bothering me, or what's that tickle I feel in the back of my head? I always feel like bias comes from a place of fear, which also comes from a place of the unknown. And sometimes it just helps to know that there are resources out there that you can ask safe questions to. In my role here as the LGBT liaison to the city manager, I've actually been thrilled at the number of people who come and ask questions that they just wouldn't feel comfortable asking anyone else because they didn't want to feel like they were being negative. But one of my favorite ones was just somebody going, "What's with the alphabet soup? Explain the Q and the I and the A and what do they all stand for?" And or even I've just found out that my brother is he's 65 years old and he's literally just come out, and I don't understand that because he's been married and for a long time. So I sort of feel like making sure that you kind of seek out resources that you can be in a safe place to ask questions of will help you as you travel your way through bias, as well. To reach out if you're a parent. Also, just as a parent, reaching out to some of the other organizations to learn a little bit more, or even just maybe even taking your child to a pride event when there's something going on, so that they can see that you're supportive just in that way. I can remember, honestly, my family member that I felt like let me know was my stepfather, and it was in the smallest thing, but he took me to see La Caja Fall when I was in high school. And it let me know he didn't have to say a word, but it was his way of going, I support you, and I love you, and this is okay who you are. So small things like that can make a big difference as well.
And if I could just say one more thing to that, I think with the greatest fear for anyone who's experiencing an issue, questions about their identity, is, or any of us really as humans, is a fear of rejection. And when we don't know what else to do, and Neva, when you're thinking about your stepdad, I mean, it had to be a very encouraging message that you knew that you wouldn't be facing rejection. That's what we're, isolation and rejection. No one wants to experience that. And so when we don't know what else to do, I think it's good to just communicate. You're not going to be alone going through this. We may not know what the next step is. We may not know how this is going to play out. We'll have to learn a lot together, but we're going to do it together, and know that you'll have that support base there. Is going to alleviate a lot of really substantial challenges that any person who's reconciling an identity will face. I think that's a really important component. I think I think it's important when we think about what does being an ally mean, and it could mean something very substantial. Like when I was working with Hampton Roads Pride, I was just blown away by the people who were not themselves members of the community, but invested unbelievable amounts of time, energy, talent, resources into what we were doing, and how humbling that it was to have that level of support. But it doesn't require, you don't have to do that to be an ally. You can be an ally by being kind, by speaking up when something is going wrong, as Neva mentioned, which I think is really important, and just letting people know that that you've got their back. And everyone should be an ally, whether you're an ally to LGBTQ, we all should be allies to others. And I think that can take on very, very big tasks, or it could be something that's very, very small, but still significant. And so I think we should just think about, particularly those communities who are characterized by being different outside of the mainstream in one way or the other, how we find intersection there and support each other. Because I think everyone has a responsibility to be an ally to someone else.
So I think, obviously in the moments we've all been there where a friend, or maybe it was even you, who stood up and corrected somebody. And while it may seem unpleasant, I think we all remember those moments and remember who those people were. And for me, those are people that I will never forget for the rest of my life. And so for an LGBT person, I just think that carries a lot of weight, and it really means a lot and can go a long way. But I also think it's important to remember that a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. And so what may seem like an insignificant comment when you're talking to your friend, hey man, stop being gay or something, you hear something like that out and about. And I think often people, when they say those comments, they don't really realize the weight of what they just said. They think they're calling, their friend silly or something. And really that's not the weight of what they said. And so I think by nicely and respectfully kind of letting them know why that's not really a cool thing to say, I think that, often you can change things like that. As far as the concept of religion, I certainly agree our country was founded on religious liberties, but again, I think it gets down to a simple principle of respect and love, and loving your neighbor and taking care of them and being kind to people.
Sometimes it just helps they might not be ready to have that conversation with you, but to let them know you're okay. And sometimes that's can be done in small ways, like my stepdad taking me to the play, or maybe you have friends that are gay that you let them know. If it's really young children, there are wonderful children's books out now that you can just make sure, honestly, whether you think your child is gay or not reading books together that have a variety of characters in them that are gay, straight, black, Hispanic, Asian, just letting them know that difference it should be honored and respected. Um, if you let your child know that you're going to support them no matter what, then that way when they're ready to have that conversation with you, you're on standby, and they know that they're not going to be alone at the end of it.
Anna, this is Jill Blake, Neva's wife.
Hey, Jill.
I want to add something, and this partially comes from being a teen librarian as well. If this is coming from you're wondering about your own child, try not to label them for them. There can be very feminine boys who are not in fact gay, and there can be very masculine girls who are not in fact gay. And I think it's more important to do exactly what they've all mentioned, is just reassure them that you love them no matter who they are, but don't try to tell them who they are.
Thank you for
Grappling with
jumping on.
sexuality is so complicated and so confusing, and they're going to trust you and they're going to listen to you, and that might lead to more confusion. So absolutely read, if they're younger, read books about it, talk about people in your life, and make it clear that you don't care what anybody's sexuality is, that it's irrelevant to you. And that'll be the reassurance that they need.
Well, I'd like to share this. The city of Virginia Beach is the largest city in the Commonwealth, as we all know. And a study was released several years ago. And I can't cite the name of it now, but anyhow, it was credible, though, that said Virginia Beach is one of the top communities of same-sex couples raising families in the country, highest concentrations. So we do have a vibrant, robust LGBTQ community. The city of Virginia Beach has been a leader in non-discrimination practices for many, many years, and we've made rapid progress in the last 5 to 10 years, both within our community at large, but specifically with the leadership within the city of Virginia Beach. And that's thanks to leaders like you, Anna, and Neva, and our city managers and councils that have adopted policies that welcome everyone and respect everyone. And, Neva's the liaison to the city manager's office. She's a direct line for the community and for city staff to any issue they face. Anna's working on diversity and inclusion for the whole city. We have LGBTQ liaison officers in our police department, sheriff, fire, and EMS. We're doing a lot of great work, and we have a lot to be proud of, even in spite of the challenges that we still face. We have made a lot of progress, and we have a lot to be proud of here in the city of Virginia Beach. So thanks for all the work you do.